Hi everyone, welcome back to Nasidyanka. This is the channel where I talk about Bulgarian history, culture, and faith. And since Bulgaria by far is an Orthodox Christian country, I have come to share Orthodox Christian resources in my current episode 12 with all of its subcategories from A through I, which I named after modernism. We're exploring in depth what modernism means from an Orthodox Christian perspective. And of course, this has affected Bulgaria. The resources that I use come from the Bulgarian Orthodox Church. They have not been made popularized throughout the Western world for whatever different reasons. And since I did receive a blessing and a strong urge and encouragement by a priest monk Vissarion in 2016 to go and spread this information, he actually gave me his own personal piles of personally written and published books, and I delivered them to a local church at the time, and the other pile I kept for myself. I have been postponing all along until most recently, and now I've just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go and do what I was called to share, because the questions have bubbled up, and I see both in my personal life and in my professional life a lot of victims suffering from a mixture of deceptions and misrepresentations of facts, of tradition of church, and in general misused terminology. So in episode 12a, I made a little introduction. Episode 12b and c, I introduced you to what is modern, and also St. Vladimir Seminary in New York. So today I will talk to you about the Paris Theological Institute. This comes from an article that was published in December 26, 2010, and I am including the resource in the comments section, so please refer to that. It is a resource from one of the Bulgarian Orthodox Christian websites. So the St. Sergius Orthodox Theological Institute in Paris is the oldest modernist so-called Orthodox educational institution. The Paris Theological Institute is a private higher education institution, un établissement d'enseignement supérieur privé in French, operating under the auspices of the Paris Academy, uniting the universities of Paris. In terms of jurisdiction, the Paris Theological Institute refers to the Western European Russian Exarchate of the Patriarchate of Constantinople. In the year of 1922, on the initiative of the Secretary of the Russian Student Christian Movement, Nikitin, and Father Liperovsky convened a meeting with John Mott and the Russian religious figures, in particular Kartashev and Zenkovsky, on the issue of the creation of a higher church, theological, educational institution for the Russian immigrants. After the meeting, Mott allocated $8,000 to the Theological Institute in Paris. The institute was founded in 1925. Among its benefactors are Paul Anderson, Donald Lurie, the Bulgarian modernist professor Protopresbyter Stefan Tsankov. The founding committee includes Metropolitan Evlogius Georgievsky, Father Lev Liperovsky, Gustav Kuhlmann, and others. Initially, Metropolitan Evlogius intended that the Orthodox Theological Institute in Paris be opened with the knowledge and blessing of the Synod of the Russian bishops abroad. But then he changed his mind, and he opened this institute without consulting either the Synod or the Council. And so, the Paris Theological Institute has been condemned by the Council of the Russian Church Abroad as being self-organized by Metropolitan Eulogius. The Russian Church Abroad refused to approve the status of the Paris Theological Institute because the dogmatic views of the founders of the Paris Theological Institute, A.V. Kartashev, Father Sergius Bulgakov, and V.V. Zenkovsky, were not Orthodox. It's very clear and it makes perfect sense to me. If something is simply not orthodox, let's not call it orthodox, call it by another name. Why do we have to deceive the public? This is my own little note here. I'm including this so you can all think a little bit about this. The article mentions the fact that according to the teaching of Kartashev, God's grace in his time had passed from the Christian church to the unbelieving socialists. Communists, right? And Proto-Presbyter Bulgakov introduced into Christian dogmatics the previously unheard of teaching in Orthodox Church history about Sophia being seen as a feminine beginning, which he recognized as the higher mother of God. You guys, these are not Orthodox theology concepts. And again, if people want to believe in pagan traditions, they should go search for these there. But let's not mix things that don't go together. It's kind of like calling coffee tea. And then you go to the store, you're ordering tea, and you're expecting coffee, and they give you tea. This is just ridiculous, unheard of. Anyway, so he went as far as boldly calling the heavenly Aphrodite and goddess this Sophia. Metropolitan Anthony Hrapovitsky blessed the innovative mix of creation of the Paris Theological Institute, and he lectured there. Metropolitan Eulogius thanked him for that by using deceiving words such as these: "I'm deeply grateful to your eminence for the benevolent attitude towards my undertaking." End of quote. He went as far in his crooked deception of church history, ideology, and dogma as to ask that this innovative project be protected from the, quote, "the false and malicious accusations of some slanderers," end of quote. Again, if he wants to create a new school of religion, why doesn't he change the name? That's my insert here. Come back to the article. The Paris Theological Institute is known for propagating ecumenism among the Orthodox. A delegation from the Paris Theological Institute took part in 2 conferences in 1937, Life and Work in Oxford and Faith and Order in Edinburgh. The first one was attended by Father Sergius Bulgakov, B. Vysheslavtsev, L. Zander, V. Zenkovsky, A. Kartashev, and G. Fedotov. In 1952, Father Nikolai Afanasiev, together with Father Cyprian Curran, initiated the so-called Semaine d'études liturgiques, or liturgical conferences at the Paris Theological Institute, in which not only Orthodox, but also Catholic and Protestant modernists take part. This is a mixture that doesn't go with pure, clean, traditional orthodoxy. Lecturers from the Paris Theological Institute also take part in numerous ecumenical actions. The Paris Theological Institute is one of the founders of the Higher Institute of Ecumenical Studies, l'Institut Supérieur d'Études Œcuméniques du Paris, in French, at the Catholic Institute of Paris. In the year of 2006, the Paris Theological Institute reformed its program in accordance with the requirements of the Bologna process. Here are the names of the famous modernists and ecumenists who taught at the Paris Theological Institute, and they are all available on that Bulgarian website, which I am, again, referring to. Look at the comment section. Their names are Cassian Bezobrazov, Father Sergius Bulgakov, 1925 through 1944. He taught dogmatics, Old Testament, Christian sociology. Father Vasily Zenkovsky, from 1926 through 1962. He was into history of philosophy, psychology, apologetics, history of religions. Father Cyprian Curran, patrology, Greek language, pastoral theology, liturgy. Father Nikolai Afanasiev, canon law, Greek language, dogmatics, and ecclesiology. Father Georgy Florovsky, patrology, dogmatics, and more theology. A.V. Kartashev, 1925 through 1960, church history, Old and New Testament. L.A. Zander, 1926 through 1964, Logics, Pedagogy. Pedagogy, is that what you say in English? Pedagogy. And Expository Theology. Eber Siegel, Philosophy. S.S. Verhovsky, 1944 through 1951, Dogmatics, Moral Theology, History of Philosophy, and Theology of the Catholic Church. B.P. Vysheslavtsev, History of the New Philosophy and Moral Theology. P.N. Evdokimov, 1953 through 1970, Moral Theology. K.A. Elchaninov, 1952 through 2001, Philosophy and Apologetics. N.M. Zernov, Comparative Theology. V.N. Ilin, Liturgy, History of Philosophy. Olivier Clément, History of the Church. N.O. Losky, Philosophy. Father John Meyendorff, 1950 through 1959, Greek Language and Church History. G.P. Fedotov, 1926 through 1939, History of the Western Church. Hagiology. S.L. Frank, Philosophy. Father Alexander Schmemann, History of the Church. K.V. Mochulski, Father Leo Gilles. John Meyendorff, 1950-1959, Greek Language and Church History. G.P. Fedotov, 1926 through 1939, History of the Western Church and Hagiology. And let's see, I think I'm repeating some of those. John Meyendorff, did I mention 1950 through 1959, Greek Language and Church History. G.P. Fedotov, I think I mentioned History of the Western Church and Hagiology. S.L. Frank, Philosophy. Father Alexander Schmemann, History of the Church. And Mochulski, K.V. Mochulski. And Father Leo. I did repeat myself a little bit here. These are many, many, many names. You guys can find them on the website. Among the graduates are the famous modernists and ecumenists such as Antioch Patriarch Ignatius Hazim, Metropolitan George Hodr, Father Mikhail Aksenov Meyerson, Father Alexander Sinyakov, Father Boris Bobrinsky, S.S. Verhovsky, Father Gennady or Akalovich, Pavel Evdokimov, K.A. Elchaninov, V.V. Lepakin, Father John Meyendorff, Father Nikolai Ozolin, Father Kirill Fotiev, Father Alexander Schmemann, Father Georgy Kochetkov defended his dissertation at the Paris Theological Institute actually on the topic Mysterious Introduction to Orthodox Catechesis. Lots of names, they're hard for me to pronounce. I'm sure you guys have seen some or many of the books written by some of those guys. As of the year 2010, when this article was published, the rector of the Paris Theological Institute has been Archbishop Gavril Komansky and the dean, Father Nikolai Blackfoot. At the Paris Theological Institute, Father John Breck, Patristics and Bioethics, Father Nikolai Chernukrak, New Testament, Ascetic Theology, Father Nikolai Ozolin, Iconology and Pastoral Theology and Homiletics, Father Job Gecha, Church History and Church Statute, Father Nikolai Losky, Church History, Michael Stavru, Dogmatic Theology, and others are participants in there. At this point, more than 50 students and about 400 part-time students study in the full-time program at the St. Sergius Theological Institute. It is mainly taught in the French language. The Paris Theological Institute publishes the magazine Orthodox Thought. I am going to end this episode here. This is a lot of info. I really want you guys to hear the names. Ponder what information you're filling your brains with, whose ideas are infiltrating your mindset. If you claim or if you're interested in the real, honest, true, old, traditional Orthodox religion, are you reading the appropriate resources? And if you're not interested, are you being deceived by being told that you're Orthodox? I'm I'm leaving that in your hands. I'm glad to be able to do something, to present something. The interesting question again and again remains for me, why was the majority of this information not translated in the English language, which is spoken by the majority of the world nowadays? So in the next episode 12, subcategory E, we're actually going to begin discussing the calendar. Stay tuned. I appreciate you for your interest. If you are new, feel free to look at my previous episodes. If you're interested in more information like this, make sure to subscribe. If you're not interested, that's completely okay. I respect you. I hope that this finds you well, and I wish you a good rest of your day. Thank you and goodbye.